Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 156 of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. We have a really cool episode. I'm doing an interview, a 10 questions interview with Fiona McEntee, and she's a fellow immigration attorney in Chicago, really active, has a top Twitter account for an immigration attorney, is on TV all the time, and doing a lot of neat stuff. In particular, a new podcast she started called Immigration Revelation. And you could go to immigrationrevelation.co to get information about that. She's going to be broadcasting weekly about different stories about the immigration process, which is going to help the cause for people to understand the human side of things. And it's so interesting to get to know her background. She's an immigrant herself. So it's really a good episode to listen to, along with just, practical stuff that we talk about on these things. She also interestingly has a book called Our American Dream. It's a children's coloring book, which she was kind of sent to me for my kids, and it was very lovely. So that's a cool thing on the side to check out. I definitely want to thank Fiona for that as well. Now, on another note, housekeeping, the Champions for Freedom Marriage Green Card Training Program, which goes through the I-130 process, consular processing, adjustment of status, affidavit of support, how to do the interview, that kind of stuff, is starting November 3rd. It's a Tuesday. And so if you're interested in that, let me know as soon as possible. Email me at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, there's the S. info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com, and let me know if you're interested. We could have I'll email you back, or I'd be happy to have a brief call just to recap what the course is about. But I think you'll learn a lot. Essentially, it's my office, what I do, and making a good living off just these kind of cases. So we're gonna go through that. Of course, we won't go into marketing as much, but it's gonna seep in there some sort of way. So you'll get some good information. One other housekeeping note, docket-wise, the form system you're probably all aware of is the form system I use for my cases, for these, family-based adjustment of status cases. It's a wonderful program, and they're kind enough to sponsor the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. And what you need to do to get 10% off the annual price is to go to docket-wise.com/immigration-lawyers-toolbox. And the code is immigration-lawyers.podcast. I signed the name Immigration Lawyers, this and that to everything. It gets kind of confusing, but go to docket-wise.com/immigration-lawyers-podcast. And the code is Immigration Lawyers Podcast as well. And so definitely do that. If you're an existing person doing a month-to-month account, take advantage of the 10% off to there. Just contact them, let them know that you want to switch to an annual account and get 10% off. I did that. I was really happy to do it. And it's just a great service. Another thing that stood out is, a couple of times where I couldn't understand things with their software, I contact them, and they're so quick to get back. That's one of the great parts. There's someone there and someone who understands the urgency of the things we do. And the only reason I contacted them a couple of times for things I couldn't understand were things that, like, after I sent them the email, or the help box stuff, after a few minutes, I figured out myself, and then they respond. I'm like, oh, never mind, I got it. So I'm quick to complain. That's the way I am. But I'm just kidding. But they're excellent service, and they're excellent enough where I said I'd be happy to tell people about the service that they offer. So it's a great thing. Just get that 10% off. Go to docket-wise.com/immigration-lawyers-podcast to take advantage of that with the code Immigration-Lawyers or Immigration Lawyers Podcast. And I guess one last thing, if you're listening to this on iTunes or anyone else, please leave a 5-star review, say some positive stuff. It'll help get the word out for other immigration attorneys, learn about this program so we get out more information. After this recording, I'm going to bust out another agency report and news update to talk about things that are happening in the practice. I know a lot of colleagues love listening to those kind of stuff. And if you're interested in the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, the monthly program, which has some additional secret stuff I'm putting out, if you contact me, we'll let you know about a new directory I've put out, which I think will boost a lot of your practices. Just reach out at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. So there's a lot of different lawyers tools and stuff in there. But I guess with that, let's get it started.
Welcome to the Immigration Lawyers Podcast, a part of the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, an education and marketing publication for the immigration law community that includes legal updates, interviews, discussions, education and CLE material, and more. Note that the information here is for general education only and not intended as individual legal advice. The laws change frequently, so you should consult with an attorney about your specific case. For more information, please visit immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. We have a great guest today, founding member and manager of, is it McEntee Law Group?
McEntee, but
McEntee.
you know, I've heard it all. So
because it doesn't have an MAC or something like. I was trying to be make it perfect, but McEntee. Okay, that's why I assumed that first too. Law Group, also an author. We're going to talk about that as well. It's something hard to do, and also listed as one of the top Twitter lawyers by the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox to follow on Twitter, and I'll have her social media information in the show notes. Fiona, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, John. It's my pleasure.
Great. So let's just jump into it. Could you tell us more about yourself and where you grew up, where you're from, and how you got into immigration law?
Yeah, sure. So if the name doesn't give it away, the accent probably will. So I am from Dublin, Ireland originally. And just a side note in relation to name. So the Mac in everyone's name means son of in Irish. So it means like anytime you see a Mac in front of a name, it's a Gaelic to say son of. So, but I grew up anyway in Dublin, Ireland, came to the US when I was 20 as part of an exchange program. I was studying law over there. The practice, or I guess the study of law, is done at you can do it at a bachelor's level. And I know that's the same for a lot of other countries outside the US. You can do a full bachelor's degree in law. So I was doing that and got the opportunity to come to Chicago as part of an exchange program at DePaul. So that's when I first came to the US. And I feel like, you know, a lot of our clients say, I came for a year originally, or, you know, something like that. And that's kind of how I was. I came initially for a year, kind of fell in love with Chicago, and then moved back to Ireland, got my bachelor's, and then moved back out to finish a JD here in 2005.
And then, so you got the JD, and it's the question immigration lawyers always ask, well, how'd you get to stay? What kind of status did you get afterward?
Yeah, so I mean, I only found immigration law as a practice area back when I moved back to do the JD through Chicago, Kent. I mean, studying law in Ireland in the early 2000s, it wasn't even an option. It's certainly not the way it is now. So I didn't even know it was an area of practice. But growing up, my dad always called me Save the Whales. That was my nickname. I was like a, you know, kind of social justice, like little warrior for when I was a kid. And so I thought I would do environmental law, but finding immigration in Kent, I think, is just probably the best thing that's happened to me from a career point of view. So I just saw it as a class, took the class, and then the great thing about studying it then was there were multiple clinics that I could go into. So I basically worked for a year during law school in 2 different immigration law clinics. And then I graduated kind of knowing that that was exactly the area of law I wanted to practice. And I started working for a pretty high volume business immigration firm in Chicago. And then they sponsored me, and the rest is history. So, yeah.
So, okay, so let's trace your business development, because you got your own firm, and if you go to your website, you have a whole team and stuff. As a full solo, when I see people have 2 immigration, let alone 3 immigration lawyers, I'm like, oh wow, these people really have it going on. How long were you at that firm, and then did you work for another firm then, or did you then go start your own practice?
Yeah, so I was there for 2 years, and someone had described, actually in my interview, the attorney who was interviewing me compared 1 year of practice in that firm to the equivalent of about 7 years of practice in another firm, given the high volume, given the nature of it. It was like an online, kind of a novel tech way of providing immigration legal services. And you know, we had like Fortune, 50 companies and very kind of unique issues. So I just found that I was exposed to so many different types of cases, but also kind of nuances within those cases on a very regular basis. So after 2 years of practicing, I actually got married then just as I left the firm, and then I kind of took a few months to kind of think about how I was going to set up my firm, and then I set it up so that was late 2009. Was when I set up the McEntee Law Group as a firm.
Okay, so let us back up with some good questions in there. So what do you, because we have a lot of law students listen, what was it that set you apart that got you this opportunity to work at this firm? How did you get that job, for people that are looking for some position like that?
Yeah, so I mean, I left law school with quite a good bit of immigration experience. So I had taken, I think they had 2 classes on immigration law in Chicago, Kent. So I'd taken those. I also had worked in the 2 clinics that were available. And I got a Cali in the clinic, so I got best of, the class of that clinic. So I did one clinic was business immigration, and then the other was kind of a mix of pro and low bono kind of legal aid type immigration work. So I think was in a position that I don't know that not every law school offers clinics, but I'm sure you could do internships in immigration law firms, and I certainly have hired clerks in when they were in law school. So I left with, I would say, a really, really solid foundation of immigration law before you'd even taken the bar exam.
That's really interesting. You had a business immigration clinic. How did they set that up, and what kind of clients would learn about it? Tell me more about that aspect. I haven't heard of the
Yeah,
clinic before.
yeah, it was quite interesting. So the Chicago Kent has actually law offices in it. So on whatever floor, I can't remember what floor it is in the building, but in the law school itself, there's law firms, like small law firms. So there's an employment firm, there's a tax clinic, there's I think there might be a criminal one, and there was an immigration one. And so the professor that I worked under, he actually just sent me a message on LinkedIn a while ago, which was so nice, Professor Matthew Bernstein. But he ran his business immigration clinic through the law offices of Chicago Kent, and then there would be however many students per semester could work in the clinic under his supervision and direction. So that's kind of how it was set up. It was like there's like an umbrella law offices in Chicago Kent with all these different I guess practice areas run as kind of law firms there.
What kind of cases would he take on? I'm assuming like O's or something like that, or other kind of things too.
It was like H-1Bs, perm, green cards, that type of stuff. Yeah, that's from what I recall working on. I remember like in there preparing an LCA. So getting that type of like business immigration exposure during law school.
That's wonderful. I'm really glad you shared that, because there's a lot of clinics I work with and who listen to people to start something like that up, because there's always clinics, and it's good that there's on the humanitarian side and removal defense, but getting experience on how to do H-1B or perm and the nuances of it at that stage of your career is a wonderful experience to have. It really sets you up for the future. And
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
you were at the firm, you left in 2009. Now your spouse is an attorney as well, an immigration attorney as well.
No, that's actually, he's my brother that you see on the
I wondered how
website.
the last name was
Yeah.
the same.
No, a lot of people think that, and we're always like, no, it's so creepy and weird because it's my brother. But no, I know, because my name is my maiden name. Everybody thinks that. So Ray is actually my brother. My husband Brian is American and has nothing to do with immigration except for being married to an immigrant.
So you married the US citizen after you got the green card through work. You went the hard way around, and then the marriage.
Yeah, exactly. I think we were engaged actually when my green card came through from the firm. But yeah, so yeah, no, but Ray on our website, he's my brother, so he works with me in the firm.
That's awesome that you worked together on that. So when you started, were you working together, or were you just going to go full solo?
No, so I was by myself. Ray actually was in Ireland, so he didn't move to the US until much later. So I was totally solo on my own for years and years. And then I'm trying to think what year it was. It was after my daughter was born. So it was probably in 2013. Ray, my brother, was training to be a lawyer in Ireland, and they had come over for Christmas. Himself and my mom and dad, my parents had come over for Christmas, and we were just chatting about what he was going to do. He was working in banking. It was, kind of post-recession, but things were he just wasn't loving the work he was doing. And it was New Year's Eve, and he was just like kind of fed up with the work, and I was just kind of throwing stuff out. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And then I said, why don't you just like move here and work work with me in the firm, we can grow the practice. I just threw it out there. And he was like, yeah, whatever. We were both like, oh, what, didn't actually, it's just a brainstorming thing that we threw out. And then we kind of came back to it and said, actually, that's not a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
So Ray moved over. I got him a H1B. He moved over, worked in my firm, took the bar exam in California as a foreign lawyer, and has been working here in the firm ever since like 2014, I think.
So before you came, you're full solo. What kind of cases did you take on? Were you full service or specific cases? And how did the growth occur, like hiring people and stuff?
Yeah. So, excuse me. I was full solo. I business immigration law, so not full service. I was doing, H1Bs, perms, O1s, P1s, P3s, that type of stuff. I started doing a lot of music related immigration cases. But yeah, no, I was full solo for many years. And then Ray came on, and it was kind of like a weird growth pattern, because I feel like your next hire, I would imagine, as a solo attorney is not normally another attorney.
Yeah.
It's probably normally a clerk or a paralegal. So Ray came on, but there was a while when I was obviously training Ray up, and he was studying for the bar exam. So he was kind of like a clerk, he was a clerk for a while. And so then Ray got qualified. And so then we actually hired our first person, our first hire outside of myself and Ray. It was shortly after all the travel ban stuff with Trump, when things just kind of went through the roof as far as emails and just kind of pressure and inquiries, and just like such a strain on the resources that we had, that I actually again went back to Chicago Kent, where I had graduated from, to see. I sent an email to the careers office with the job posting to see whether I could find a law student that might be suitable to come work with us.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's cool. And so have you kept up? Is your firm still focused on those practice areas, or have you changed it up? Or what's the ideal case that you like to get at your firm?
So we do a lot of O1s. We do a lot of O1s, a lot of P1s as well. So we work a lot in the music entertainment industry, sports industry. Our office is nestled in a big music and entertainment ecosystem in Chicago. So we're in a big incubator. We have private offices there. And so we're really engaged with the music and entertainment community. Ray now runs the professional sports kind of division of our practice. So we work with some major league teams and a few sports. And in addition to kind of doing the music related cases, we also do a lot of stuff with startups and tech. So I'm an advisor to, excuse me, like 1871 and some of the big tech incubators. And also I would say foreign students, I have a particular soft spot, given that I was one myself. So I would do a lot of like pro bono presentations and advice to international students in the various universities here in Chicago. So it's pretty varied, but I would say that's the bulk of the stuff that we do. We also have an attorney that works with us who handles some of the removal defense work and some of that stuff as well. So we can pretty much handle anything, but personally, that's the work that we would do a lot of. And also like E2s for maybe some of our international business clients. So yeah, it's pretty varied, but I think our kind of core focus tends to be on those like extraordinary ability type cases.
How did you get into that? Is it just the location itself, or how did you fall into this kind of specialty and this kind of clientele?
Yeah, no, it started with the music cases. Well, actually, sorry, before that, in the previous firm that I was in, there was somebody in the sales and marketing team had a contact with a major league hockey team, and they brought me along to do the pitch to be the immigration lawyer, which was a little scary, and I also didn't really know anything about hockey. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing this. So I went and we got the business, and they became a client. So I was their lead attorney in the previous firm. So I was doing a lot of the P1s. And so I had that kind of experience there. And then when I went out on my own, I had some friends and contacts in the music industry in Ireland. And so I started working with like one of Ireland's biggest bands called, actually, their name has, they've been in the media recently because their band name is called The Coronas. And so they were actually on NBC in the US talking about how it's such an unfortunate band name. But anyway, they've been around for a long time. So but I started working with them and just getting a lot of referrals through the work that we were doing with them. And then it just kind of started from there with the tech and the incubator work and then just referrals really through doing good work and caring a lot. And it just kind of word just spread, I guess.
How are you dealing with the headaches of the O and P sphere with coronavirus and USCIS acting the way it does? Are you getting the crazy RFEs and headaches from USCIS?
I've seen a lot of the reports from the ACES as well, the listserv through ALAB, that obviously the scrutiny has increased dramatically, and there's just been a lot of like changes because of the nature of the types of industries involved in O's and P's, especially for musicians. It's been definitely challenging, but also on the plus side, you are afforded some flexibility with regards to the O1s in particular. And so depending on how they're filed from the outset, so being kind of proactive ahead of time can give the clients more flexibility with regards to adding additional gigs and flexibility there. So I think it's important to think about, try to anticipate. I mean, you obviously can't anticipate a pandemic or anything like that, but you can set up a case to allow for increased flexibility down the line.
Yeah, a lot of colleagues, especially on the ACES listserv for ILA posting. I did a O1 panel for Immigration Toolbox did with David Telfer, who's been suing on his O1s, and he's going to get Jeannie Doy's. So it's a way to go when these things happen.
Yeah, for sure.
How did the pandemic since March hit your O1 business or your firm in general at all, or in some ways?
Yeah, it did. I mean, as I kind of described to people, like, we're in the global mobility business, and when people can't move, that's a problem for us, especially the type of work that we do with regards to business immigration. And so why are people filing? And I mean, obviously, so with O1s or petition-based cases, there are two parts, right? There's a USCIS filing here on this end, and then there's the embassy appointment. So, I mean, in theory, it's still business as usual as far as filing those petitions and stuff like that. But I mean, who's going to prepare for, hire somebody to file a case to, even get that part of it done when they're not able to get into the embassy to get the visa appointment, and then travel is an issue as well. So, I mean, yeah, absolutely. There've been, I would say, the demand has just decreased because people are aware that they're not really going to be able to travel. And a lot of our clients are European, and then there's the COVID travel ban in relation to those. So, yeah, it's definitely the pandemic has absolutely impacted our business.
Have you been able to get? I've been filing and getting national interest waiver, not NIEs or national interest waiver. What did they call it? Exemption?
Yeah. NIEs. Yeah, we have for some. We have. Yeah, we've gotten a couple. I would say that a lot of people are just not traveling though. I mean, it depends on the client, and it depends on where they're coming from. I mean, the rates of COVID are just so high in the US that, I mean, people are reluctant. Like, a client got in touch with me who had been in Ireland, and then he asked me, well, is this something I should even do? Should I even come to the US? And I was like, well, I'm not a doctor, so I mean, I can't tell you whether you should, but look, it's definitely, apart from the restrictions and everything, it's something that's on people's minds, is just the risk of infection, and the risk of travel. But I mean, people are still obviously traveling to the US. And so in addition to considering the national interest exception, one thing that people are doing and have done successfully is quarantining in a third country. So if they already have the visa stamp, going to the likes of Turkey or Serbia or Mexico or somewhere where they can get into, where there's no, obviously Canada is not an option, but somewhere where they don't have travel restrictions and they can go there, quarantine for the 2 weeks and then come into the US, because that COVID ban is not about nationality, it's about where you've been in the 2 weeks preceding attempted entry into the US. So that's something that we're seeing as well.
Now, this sort of goes to COVID, and it's kind of a switch of question, but I had an F1 student who goes to a Southern California school, and they were back in the home country. They came because school ended for the summer break, but he came back to do a summer internship. Summer internship was going to be video based at some big accounting firm, and it was right when that mess up with F1 students and ICE and everything happened.
Yeah.
And he came to Chicago, and they said, "Oh, what's going on with your work?" He's like, "Well, it's digital, but I'm coming for 6 weeks. It's one of the biggest accounting firm there is." They're like, "Oh, you're banned." Instead of just giving the guy like a immediate tourist visa to come in because he had his place here and all this kind of stuff, they immediately put on a plane and invalidated his visa. And then as soon as he went back, everything was fixed. They corrected the issue. And it was such a headache. And I contacted Chicago, and they're just so unresponsive at the CBP port there. And in the news, I've seen cases where I think it was a UK national who came to see his girlfriend, and they put him on a plane and sent him back because they thought immigrant intent and all that kind of stuff. Do you notice that, because you probably deal with that port more than, like, I deal with LAX a lot. Is Chicago port different, or is it just these news events, or it's just anecdotal stuff I'm hearing? Do you think they're stricter than other ports like New York or LA?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell. I know that you can hear those one or two kind of horror stories or whatever that can kind of just make you more concerned about various ports. What I will say is that we've had a pretty good relationship with CBP here in Chicago, and through AILA, our chapter has worked really, really hard over the years to maintain a very I would say open dialogue with CBP. And so, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I have always found them to be quite responsive, and whether it's emailing for satisfactory departure extensions of like visa waiver program, which happened a lot during the pandemic, and they were even accepting requests from attorneys that clients were not in the Chicago area, as long as the attorney had ties to. And so in that respect, I found them to be actually quite accommodating. It just depends. I mean, and then, we would also deal with a lot of people coming through pre-clearance in Dublin or Shannon. And I think they can be tough there as well, because I mean, my personal thing is, I think it's easier to deny entry to somebody when they're not in the US, and you don't have to put them on a plane and send them back, but Chicago I find to be responsive. They've even, I mean, they let us, I'm sure you guys have a great relationship with LAX as well, but they allow us to go on a tour every year. And so they open that up, and we, AILA attorneys can go on, obviously won't be happening given the current events, but yeah, they allow us to go on a tour behind the scenes. We can see secondary inspection and all that type of stuff. And it's actually funny, I had to go there to get my global entry, permit done or whatever, my fingerprints and everything. The guy's like, "Oh, so you're an attorney? What kind of attorney are you?" It's like, "Oh, I'm an immigration lawyer." He's like, "Oh, okay." But look, I think with CBP, I mean, it's like everything else. There's obviously bad guys and good guys, and and they're obviously dealing with high pressure as well. My approach is always to just thank them for the work they're doing. They're putting themselves on in close interaction with so many people on such a daily basis as well. And so I always find that if you approach it from that point of view, obviously you can't guarantee that you're going to get what you want or that they're going to be accommodating. But in my experience, I think that taking that approach, and I always tell my team here as well, you get more bees with honey, approaching it from a sincere way as well, not to be, fake about it. But so yeah, I find them to be quite responsive, and I think it's based on the relationship that AILA Chicago has built up with them.
Do you know if LA Chicago is still, because LAX is the same, a wonderful management team, direct relationships with them. We have our regular liaison meetings. I mean, I love LAX CBP. I mean, every once in a while I hear crazy stories. I've had clients have problems, but they're quick to fix it if we have contact them. We have a good relationship with them. But does Chicago CP still have AILA meetings regularly with them, or do they close that down?
That's a good question. I'm not on the liaison with them, but I know that there's been an ongoing dialogue. I think I'm not sure if they've continued to have the regular meetings or not, but I know they come every year to our conference as well. They would come every year to our AILA conference in person. And now from our chapter has just built up such a wonderful now relationship with them. So I think we're pretty fortunate to still have that type of dialogue with them, and they're communicating with us.
No, I'm a member of like 6 different chapters of AILA. I think I'm gonna just hear you talk about Chicago. I might join that. That's a major hub to be part of. So
Yeah, please do come on board.
so okay, I keep talking about I want to get your experience student stuff, but this interview would go forever. So we'll go.
Yeah, yeah.
What is what you like what is that you like the most about immigration practice?
I mean, I guess what I love is, so our firm, even though, I guess it depends on size of firms, but we have a team of about 8 or 9 now. So it's still it's really boutique, we're not high volume. And every case is obviously so personal to us. We don't take every case that comes in the door, and we want to make sure there's like a nice two-way relationship with the client. And so I would say we develop quite personal relationships with our clients, given that type of stuff, especially with, let's say, maybe the O1 cases, because there's a lot of, it's quite labor intensive work. So we'll be back and forth with the client. So the nature of those types of cases allow us to really build up great relationships with our clients. And I love seeing people when they get the opportunity to really go for whatever they want to do. And this can be in the family-based case or whatever, just being able to see what they can accomplish if just given the opportunity, and whether it's a DACA or it's a sports case or a music case or a startup entrepreneur. I mean, we've had clients that I met when they were international students, and their companies have raised like 30-40 million dollars, and creating jobs, and just really being able to just kind of live out their American dream, as kind of cheesy as that sounds. And that's kind of a huge part of our practice. And another thing, I'm not into like having a hierarchy of what immigrants deserve to be here. Just because I work a lot in the O1 industry does not, it does not mean that I think that these are the only type. I'm not in favor of a merit-based immigration system at all. And I think that it's the same can be true for seeing the family-based cases as well. What just allowing people to be with the person they love, and kind of, that's just beautiful, being able to have a bit of a role to play in that. I think is probably my favorite part of this practice.
And now you mentioned being a boutique firm and about high volume. Is there ever a temptation to go high volume because you might get a huge demand, or you're forced into it? Just as there times when you just get flooded with cases, or how do you keep it away from them?
No. Yeah, no, I mean, I've been approached by somebody who said, I want to do, can you do like 400 H1Bs for me? And this is my budget or whatever. Or like, I want to do like a recruiting firm that was working with clients in, where somewhere, and they were like, oh, we want like 300 like green cards. And I was like, you should be going to, and I'm not going to name, but like some of these high volume firms, like that's where you need to go. It's not me. So I think that that's kind of part of our brand, is that we are very personal. We're very, I mean, being an immigrant myself, having Ray and then my team, we're all like very closely connected to the immigration system and process ourselves. And so it's just not I never imagined going down that road. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's, it's just each their own. It's just not what we're going for.
I hear that. And what is that you dislike the most about practicing immigration law?
I mean, look, right now it's tough. I think it's hard to shut off. I think that it's hard there's just so many changes all the time right now, and it's the uncertainty of, it's hard to even advise clients, because the advice you give today might change tomorrow. And that's even with regards to travel for the pandemic, or these cases that you would have thought are rock solid, then you get denials that are just on these RFEs that they're just copying and pasting from a template, and the amount of work that's gone in from our end, from the client's end. Like, our clients deserve a fair adjudication of their case, and if there's a deficiency there, they deserve someone to take the time to put together a proper RFE and not just copy from a template. So those types of things, I think, can be pretty frustrating, when you just feel like your clients are just not getting a fair adjudication.
I'm working on an RFE right now where it's obvious the officer didn't read it at all because they're asking for everything we gave. And they even said, like, we
Yeah.
need the fourth quarter 2020 quarterly tax filings. I'm like, fourth quarter 2020? That doesn't even exist yet. So it's like
A miracle. Wow. Yeah.
The next question I'll ask is any memorable moments you have. And I just recalled that you have a new podcast that's starting, and I'm going to do an intro for. I'm definitely going to plug it, and the information is going to be in the show notes. But I want to make sure. I do remember we're going to get into both the podcast and your book in a moment. But what is like a very memorable moment that you have? Because the reason why I came up is I'm sure writing that book about immigration and having a podcast are both super memorable moments. But any other things that you really stood out that you remember about your practice?
Yeah, I would say one of my clients, who I started working with him when he was a foreign student, back when I met him before I even had my daughter, and so we kind of worked through all different parts of his case, from foreign student to O1, and like the day he got his green card was just such a memorable moment, because I feel like we kind of grew alongside each other. My practice grew alongside of his company and like what he's done. And I remember like first meeting him to I feel like I'm going to tear up. It's just but this is like the part of my practice that our practice that we love being able to kind of follow along with clients along their journey. And so I would say that is one particular moment that like stands out, and getting, a little like note card from his office just thanking us for all the work, for not just me but the team, and those types of things. Yeah, it's always great to be able to celebrate the wins with our clients. And we have Slack for like messaging, and we have like a celebrate the wins channel, and I make sure that we all acknowledge every person on the team that has a role to play in all of these cases as well. So yeah, those wins are always memorable.
You have a client. There's this common misunderstanding and this misinformation out there that immigration clients are one and done, and just you always got to get a new client. But these are relationships. You had multiple steps right there, that you had a client that you're working with, and you didn't include NATs, which just happens, and then they might get married or apply for the parents.
Yeah.
So it's a long-term relationship. It's really important to develop that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's our whole kind of ethos of our firm, is that we are in it for the long haul with our clients. And the reputation of my firm and for me is just so important to us. And that's why, we really do sincerely nurture those relationships. And that's the thing about me, is like, what you see is what you get. This is, I feel like we are all really sincere, and that the nurturing of those relationships with our clients are just actually personally really important to us, apart from the professional aspect of it as well. So, and like, I know all our clients by name, I know all their cases by name, and that's the way I want to keep it as well.
Yeah, I tell my clients in consultation that, listen, we're going to be working together for the next 10 years, and we're going to be friends and family for the next 20, 30 years. So, choose your immigration attorney based on a long-term relationship, not one and done. And then sometimes when people are just zeroing in on how much it costs, I'm like, even if you have the money, that's not what this is about. It's a long-term relationship we're developing.
Yeah.
Who cares about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it's a two-way street as well. You both have to be comfortable, and you both want to be going into it with, I just feel like with wanting to work together, because it is, the stakes are really high, and you want someone who really cares about you. And I think you don't have to be an immigrant to appreciate what that's like. But I also, having been in people's shoes as a foreign student, I personally know how that feels. So yeah, absolutely.
Now, we kind of talked about your marketing and stuff. Do you have a particular marketing method? Actually, I skipped the question. Any advice you had that you wish you knew now when you started that could help people that are starting either as immigration lawyers or starting a firm? Anything that's helpful?
Mm. I mean, look, I feel like people told me this stuff that I don't know that I heeded, but the technology that's exists now, and I feel like a grant, like, oh, back in my day, we didn't have, like things like I started and I might have had stuff stored on my desktop and I didn't have, and I think start as if you would grow and as if you would have a team of 10, and what systems are you using now that you would need other people to be able to access. And so I would say those types of things are important, even just from like a tech point of view. We recently migrated over our email server from an old platform that I had used back in the day. I picked this kind of one-stop shop that you could have your website and your email, and you could have everything. It was like one of probably the first, or maybe not the first, but a DIY design your own kind of website type thing. But it didn't grow with the times, and so it kind of was still clunky. And so anyway, we migrated over to Microsoft, and that was a whole ordeal. So I would say try to stick to like let's say email servers that are going to be around forever, that are going to upgrade, that are going to kind of move with the times. And I would say have the systems in place as if you have a team of 10 and need everybody to access things, and just start as you mean to continue, because it'll be easier then when you do grow, if you want to, and you don't need to worry at least about that part of it.
Which company was it that because I have a similar thing, website, email in one place, and I have to so was it GoDaddy or something like that, or who are you using that do it yourself on the one?
No, it was like it was called One and One. It was like a really old one that was around, and like, yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. And then we found these amazing IT guys through Apple here. And so that's the thing, like you don't have an in-house IT department. I mean, I don't know who does. Alex, who I mentioned, so she was actually our first law clerk that we hired. She is now an associate here at our firm, and we have basically no turnover. Almost everyone has stayed on and grown with us, which has been amazing. But Alex has took on a reluctant, well, she's been great, but she's taken on this role as like kind of pseudo director of IT. But we ended up working with this outside IT team, and they've been amazing. But I think it's just a headache. Those technology things are tough to have to think about, because that's not really where, I don't, maybe other immigration attorneys have backgrounds in IT and stuff, but most of us probably don't. And so I think the systems that we use are super important as well.
I just started getting into it myself, and I'm like kicking myself for not doing it sooner. I'm like, wow, it's so much more smoother and faster and cleaner to do some technology in there. It takes a little while. The headache is learning the stuff, and that's like the worst.
Yeah.
Like I have to sit and put aside time, but the payoff is massive. And sometimes you might pick software that there'll be 3 people who offer software. The first one sucks, second one sucks, and you might have to go through a couple till you get it, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, and we've moved systems over the years as well, and it's headache, but has been so worth it as far as what we're able to do now, and just way more efficient. And from going remote, like we went obviously like most people remote overnight. In March, earlier than we were even forced to, because I was hearing a lot of stuff from Europe, and kind of knew things were more serious than we were being led to, or being told here. So, but anyway, overnight we could go remote, and it worked out really well. And we had Zoom for phones. We already had all that stuff already set up, and so. But that's the future. I mean, I know we're still working with the archaic system of paper filing a lot of stuff, but I think having that flexibility for employees is really important, and they definitely appreciate the ability to work from home on some days. Sometimes people need to come into the office, but I think having systems that enable remote working is just way more efficient, and I think it helps to boost staff morale as well.
Now, you talked about for marketing, you were able to get a lot of clients because your location and the clients that word of mouth and stuff, but what is your favorite in particular marketing method that you use?
I mean, I do a lot of media interviews. I'm the chair of the ALA's National Media and Advocacy Committee. So I just stepped into that role this year. I've been on the committee for a few years. But I mean, honestly, all my media stuff started on the travel ban, on day one of the travel ban, when I became the ad hoc media person for the O'Hare Airport attorneys with zero media training. Ended up like live on MSNBC for like 8 minutes in like the middle of just panic, chaos. So I had no media training. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I was just like, like a deer in headlights going, what? But I just, I think it boils down to being in such a privileged position as a US citizen, as an immigration lawyer with a lot of experience, to be able to advocate for people who don't necessarily have that platform, or, with the travel ban, they didn't have a voice when they were detained in secondary inspection. So I tend to do a lot of that stuff. I was doing a lot of media interviews with the in relation to ICE and the foreign students over the summer. And I mean, that obviously helps with marketing, but it also is a big part of advocacy. It's a big part of using your platform for more than just our individual clients. I think if we can try to get people to think about immigration in different ways, I think that that's when we're really living up to, and that can look differently for other people. Not everyone's going to be comfortable doing media things, but if you want to write, I published an op-ed in USA Today on foreign students. You can write letters to your editor. If there's something you're seeing in immigration court that you just are appalled at, that you can write a letter to the editor, or to an op-ed. And there's a lot of appetite for immigration related content. So I would encourage people to, each AILA chapter has a media committee, and so you can tap into that as well and just see. You can write for AILA's blog, Think Immigration. There's lots of ways that you can get your voice out there that will ultimately really help, I think, to advocate for immigrants.
Yeah, and both advocating and business-wise, there's so many opportunities out there. It's almost unlimited. It's just got to, get off the couch and get off the, just work and do it. It's a little bit extra work, but the payoff is massive in various ways. And just for example, being on the committee, you also have all these other committee members that you know intimately, and friendships that have developed. I know so many friends of mine just because I was on an AILA committee here and there, or go to meetings. It's such a powerful thing that you could develop these relationships. Now, the last question is outside hobbies, which you have hobbies, it seems, that I know of at least, that intermesh with immigration, and you have other ones. Let's talk about, first of all, you sent my family a beautiful book that you wrote about the immigration process. How did the idea for that come, and how difficult was it to put a book together? I'm sure it's a really hard thing to do.
So I actually have it here. There it is. I'm glad you guys got it. Hopefully, I know your kids are probably a little bit young to kind of get the different characters, but it's based on real people, clients, family, friends, and so each one of them has a really kind of personal immigration story. My husband and I were asked to read a book to my daughter's kindergarten class, and I was just in bed one night reading to her, and I just thought, God, I'd love if I had a book that kind of showed a lot of the types of people. I mean, there's some great books on immigration, for kids, but I wanted one that, from my vantage point of seeing like just all these diverse, different clients on a regular basis. And so, yeah, I just started thinking about the different characters that I would write about, and came home from work on one Friday and had the list of people that I already kind of knew I wanted to write about. And I just got totally inspired and finished the book by 1 or 2 in the morning. Now, I say this like it's not a novel, but so it's a children's book, but I had all the verses and rhyming. I mean, we obviously write all day long for a living, but I'm not used to, I don't know about you, but I'm not used to writing and rhyme. So that was a bit of a challenge. And then, but it's been quite a process, but it's been so rewarding, and it's been such a positive outlet in the midst of, I think, really dark times for this country with regards to immigration. It's been really nice to have something positive to focus on, with a view to hopefully having more just conversations about immigration in a way that does not involve ICE or deportations, or, and I define American published a great report, Jose Antonio Vargas, who's just amazing. They published a great report that just shows the overrepresentation of undocumented immigrants in the media and in media that we consume. And there's another part of immigration, and we don't often get to see that. It's like people with their different stories, and so I wanted a way to kind of highlight some of those for kids.
Speaking of that, you also have a podcast that is out now. I think you launched the first episode, or is it coming up?
Yeah, the first episode was came out last week. We're going to release one a week, and so the name of the podcast is Immigration Revelation, and it is on obviously all the major podcast platforms, and then immigrationrevelation.co is the domain. And our first episode features Belen Sisa, who is a dreamer, so a DACA recipient, who is just an amazing advocate, who originally actually went viral because she posted her tax returns online and called out Trump, and said, everyone says undocumented immigrants don't pay taxes, here's my taxes. And so she went viral, and she turned into this huge activist, and she was Bernie Sanders' Latino press secretary for his presidential campaign, and helped write his immigration policy that would have, that kind of formed the blueprint of the policy for his campaign. So the first episode is with her, and we have lots of other people coming up. We have some professional athletes, some musicians, some family-based immigration stories. Again, just to kind of talk about just bring humanity back into the immigration conversation, because it's been, I think, monopolized honestly by this administration and by ICE and deportation force, and so I think we need to start sharing some of these stories to have people think about immigration in a different way.
Wonderful. I really appreciate it. It's great work. And you're a mother, you have responsibilities of that along with the podcast, so you're keeping yourself really busy.
Yeah, definitely. But look, I mean, we're all here with the support of, I think, parenthood in the pandemic. In any time is challenging, but it's just having the support of so many people. And I also, appreciate from my clients that are separated from their families. My parents are in Ireland, and there's travel bans, and my cousins, and so I kind of know how it feels to be separated from your family as well. I mean, obviously this is temporary. Some people have it for a lot longer and for other reasons, but I think that we can only do all of this with the support of people. My husband, Brian, I have always called him my Marty Ginsburg. He's like a true partner in life, but in parenthood, and my lawyer mom friends, the law mamas, we're all there to support each other, and my team and stuff. So yeah, it definitely takes a massive village, especially when there's little ones involved, and our nanny Megan. So yeah, we just have the great support. So
wonderful. And so if someone wanted to reach out to you, connect, what's the best way they could do that?
So my handle on Twitter and Instagram is @US Visa Lawyer. Otherwise, our website mcenteelaw.com, and my email as well should be all up there on the website. But I would say, I mean, I'm pretty active on Twitter. I like tweeting at people. I like using that as a platform for advocacy. I would say that for other immigration lawyers, it's a great way to connect with members of the media or Congress people, and just to promote your message that way. I tend to be pretty active on there. So yeah, and then Facebook. So basically, everywhere. But I'd say Twitter is probably the most active place.
Well, thank you for everything that you do. I mean, it's an inspiration to see the path you take in, and just how much success you've had. And I focus a lot on the business of immigration law and getting involved, and you're an example of that as well. And the great thing about immigration law, it's a non-sexist field of law, just business, because there's so many women that are like leading the way, both business-wise and financially, making a ton of money while doing great advocacy. It's not one of those kind of jobs that's dominated by a certain group or type. It's pretty open for everyone to jump in.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it kind of tends to lend itself to smaller firm practice settings. So if it's something that people want to have a family, it can allow you flexibility. And look, it's not without its challenges, of course, it really is. But I think, yeah, absolutely. And I think that, who knows what's coming, but I think I would say that it's one of the most rewarding areas of practice, with way more pros than cons, but it's not for the faint of heart.
For sure. Fiona, thank you so much for coming on. I look forward to talking with you again.
Thanks so much, Sean. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
See you later. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. For previous episodes and more, please visit the podcast page of our website, immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. You can also visit the Toolbox YouTube and LinkedIn pages to catch the video versions of these podcasts, news updates, and a lot more. Immigration lawyers can also contact me to join the private Facebook page. The email is info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com.